going to talk about the curvature of the back. You guys hear us talk a lot about the crescendo and how everything's a wave in the back and a back bend. So I have a cool prop trick that you can do. Many of you guys are familiar with this if you've taken live classes with me, and this one's called the block buddy. So I recommend using a cork block because it gives more feedback. It's a firmer prop, but you can use any block. You can certainly use a foam block as well. Foam block, or grab your block and a strap, and you'll take your strap and make it into a loop. This is the trickiest part, is getting it on yourself. If you have someone that you live with that can strap this on your back, even better. So I kind of put the loop around my body, my torso like this, making sure that the tail faces away, because if the tail's behind you, you don't have leverage to tighten down. So from here, what I find is the easiest is I kind of come into this sort of clamshell, and I stick the block right in between my upper shoulder blades there, and then try to get the strap around it, and then you'll tighten everything down. Now, if you have a chest, put the strap around your chest, because then that way it has less likely to slide around. So you'll tighten down at the widest part of your torso. Okay? So you can see here that the block buddy is in my upper back, in my shoulder blades, and it's just that. It's just your little reminder friend. So when you come into the block buddy, already what it does is it immediately gives you that idea of like, okay, come into a straight spine. They have those posture things that you can put on your back. It's the same thing. This is probably less expensive, and it's something you already have. So use a block buddy if you're sitting and typing at your chair. But this is giving you that anatomical spine where the shoulder blades are back, the tailbone is back, you're moving your belly button forward, your chin is neutral. And as we move through some poses, I want you to think about trying to find as much space as possible between you and the block buddy. So if you feel like if you're sitting here, if you round your back, you can kind of feel how that puts pressure into the block buddy. You don't want to ever feel like that's like constricting you, because it's constricting. It's not giving you too much freedom. So we're always looking for the freedom. So if you move your torso forward and find that little semblance of space between you and the block buddy, it's like, now I can breathe. Now, whether or not there's actual space between you and the block is pretty irrelevant, but it feels much more spacious this way, okay? So let's just start nice and easy into a child's pose. So take your knees out wide, bring your big toes together to touch, bring your hands way forward, and then act as if you're going back to child's pose, but don't quite go there yet. And then what you'll feel is the tendency is to really round the spine, and then it's constricting against the block buddy. So really bring the heart forward, and then find that curvature of the spine, and then bring the sitting bones back. And of course, the further back you go towards your heels, the more you're going to have to fight to bring the sternum forward away from the block buddy. Pop up onto your fingertips, perhaps, just to give some space for your back to move, some space for your armpits to lift, and then really push the fingertips forward to start to ground the sitting bones back this way. Good. And then don't let your head drop quite yet. Just stay in this fairly active position. And imagining you're trying to move your back away from that block buddy a little bit, rather than rounding like this, and it feels like the strap is just getting tighter. Okay? So move the heart forward. And then once your hips are down towards your heels, then you can start to let your head come into the frame of your arms, but don't let your forehead come all the way down, because then it's surpassing the frame. Keep your ears in line with your biceps, and take a few breaths here. No pose is static, so there's nothing still, even though it looks like we're more still. But find still the sternum going forward, the belly moving forward, forward being towards the floor. And even a slight cross-reference of your hand. So push your left hand forward, reach and ground down through your right hip. And then push your right hand forward, reach and ground down through your left hip. And see if that gives you any more space to find some freedom from your block buddy. It's your friend, it's your reminder, but you're not attached to it. You do have some space. Your individuality moves away from it too. Use it as a nice little reference, some insight,
but we all need our space. Good. Give it a couple more breaths here. And as you're here for these couple more breaths, see if you can press down into the tops of your feet just a little bit more actively, maintaining the ears in between your arms, reaching the fingertips forward dynamically. And then find your way up to tabletop. Take your hands underneath your shoulders, knees underneath your hips, and take a moment to measure all of this. So throw a block in front of one thigh. Make sure you're not leaning too far forward where the block is tilting or the block isn't touching you at all, that it really makes a 90-degree angle at the knee, at the thigh, and do the same across to the opposite wrist. Same thing, you don't want your arm to be back where the block's tilting or it's too far forward where it's not touching. And I always need this personal reminder to soften the elbows. So if you can see, I like to really hyperlock my elbows. So just soften them enough. They're not really bent, but they're not locked straight. Okay? Press into the tops of your feet so much that you could lift your knees. You don't have to. And then shift your body weight forward into the knuckles of your hand so that the whole vehicle of your body is moving forward. And then give yourself that freedom away from your block buddy. Look out and look forward. Feel the lungs moving through the portal of the arms and also against the strap. And then do this really slow. As you inhale, start to round your back, push yourself into the block buddy. The strap is probably going to get a little bit more constricted and a little bit tighter. That's okay, because I just want you to feel the other extreme. And then exhale, look out, find your space between you and the block buddy. Soften your elbows. Keep them soft the whole time. Do that again. Round in, inhale. And exhale. One last time, in and out. Keep the spine in this position so you're staying in that cow pose, keeping yourself free from that block buddy as much as you can, but also it's still there as a nice reminder. Walk your hands forward a good foot distance or so. Curl your toes under. Keep your gaze forward. Keep your spine moving forward and start to lift your hips up and back towards downward facing dog. So your gaze will drop just a little bit, but don't let them come back behind the thumb. So that's as far back as your gaze will go. So you don't want to look down at the floor like this. Keep the gaze looking forward. Okay, and then we'll check the measurement of downward facing dog. So shift forward to high plank. And you can see, like, I like to shorten my dog much more than I think. So wiggling the feet back, lifting the hips, keeping the gaze at minimum right at the thumb line, if not a little bit in front of. And just like in child's pose, drag the hands forward against the mat, lift your tush really high. For just a moment, look down towards your ankles and see if you have ankle wrinkles right in front of the feet there. If you do, lift the heels. So rather than having your heels pushing down like this, lift the heels just enough so the ankles flatten and they don't get wrinkly. Bend your knees and then lift your tush really, really high. Bring your gaze back forward. It's also helpful you don't have a necklace wrapping around your mouth as well. And then find that freedom between you and the block buddy. It's not going to be much, but again, it's enough to where you feel your back creating a wave rather than a rounded arch. Deep breath in and deep breath out. One more time. Inhale and exhale. Bring your feet together to touch. And then go ahead and step your right foot to your right thumb. Find yourself into a low lunge. Tack your back toes onto the floor and bring your hands up onto your thigh. So when you're in a neutral position, block buddy is kind of friendly. You're like, oh, that's not so bad. And always adjust if you need to tighten or slide it back up. And then as we start to kind of add some more folds to it, it gets a little bit trickier. So I want you to find that hinge at your hips, bring your hands forward, create an upside down triangle with your fingertips and your front foot, throw your right knee into your armpit and look forward like you're in a cow pose. Then from here, right hip finds your right side a little bit better, and then your left hip finds your left side a little bit better. And then from there, find the freedom from your block buddy. Move the sternum, the pubis, the navel forward and away. Press down into your back foot so much that you could almost lift the knee. If you're not really sure what that's like, then actually push down and lift the knee just for a second or two to see if you have that anchor of your back foot. Give it one more breath here. And then place your hands down on the floor, step it back, downward facing dog. Again, gaze at the level of your thumbs, if not a little bit further forward. We naturally kind of just want to drop the head down in line with the ears, and most of the time that's totally fine. But for today, I want you to keep your gaze forward so that we're really engaged in having a relationship with our block buddy. Lift your heels just enough so that there are no wrinkles, but your tush is really reaching high. And then from here, bring your feet together to touch, and then lunge your left foot forward. Tack your back toes down, uncurl your toes, and then come up into a neutral spine. Hands onto the thigh. It's like, nice. Block buddy is in a neutral position, not feeling too much pressure. And then hinge at your hips, come forward. Bring your arms out into that V shape, fingertips down onto the floor. Throw your left knee in towards your armpit. Press down into the top of your right foot. Maybe so much so that you lift your knee just for a second or two just to check, and then release the foot back down towards the floor. So this is a simple movement, just a simple work of finding that freedom, that space from your block buddy. One more breath. And then hands to the floor, step it back, keep the gaze forward, downward facing dog. Once again, bring your feet together to touch, and then lunge your right foot forward. Tack your back knee down onto the floor, bring your hands up onto your thigh. So it's kind of coming out of it, coming back in, adding another layer to the whole experience. So if you know that you have super tight hamstrings or they're hard to access, go ahead and take 2 blocks, one for each hand. Put them out in front of you here. Find that freedom from your block buddy once again, throwing your right knee forward, and then finding your right hip at your right side, left hip at your left side. Rather than kind of turned like this, I get my right hip back to its own side and do the same thing with your left. Okay? Curl your back toes under and lift your back knee off the floor so you're more in a high lunge. For this next part, let the movement come from your tailbone. So I'm not just straightening my leg. So you can kind of see I can just bend and straighten my knee. It doesn't do a whole lot in the pelvis. Let the movement come from your tailbone. So lift the tailbone nice and high. Find that freedom from your block buddy. Take your left hip back to the left, right hip back to the right. Keep looking forward, and then from there, keep moving your tush and your tailbone a little bit higher. Maybe walk your hands forward. Spike your back heel so it's really alert. Same thing as like a down dog foot. You don't want those wrinkles in the front of your ankles because you want the heel to be lifted up, but at the same time, it's still reaching out behind you. Press down into the right big toe mound, and then just a little bit more freedom away from that block buddy. And all that I mean by that, you guys, is just find a little bit more of a back bend. And you'll see if you just move your chin, it doesn't do much from your block buddy. You really have to find it from your spine. That's why it's always back bend from your back, not from your chin. Good, and then release the back knee down towards the floor, step it back, downward facing dog. Give it a couple breaths to reset. So I just want to show you this simple technique today, and then eventually we'll integrate it into a flow in another class, but this is just a nice way for you to break it down and get some practice with moving that round out of your back, that brick that resides somewhere in the upper back. Step your left foot forward, come down into the back knee, tack your back toes under. And then same thing from here, maybe grab 2 blocks, put them under each hand, and find yourself just in a simple low lunge here. Then tuck your back toes under, lift your back knee so you're in a high lunge, still looking forward, still finding block buddy so that you're back bending, and let the movement come from your hips. So don't straighten your left leg by itself. Lift your tailbone up, 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 up. Keep lifting it, keep looking forward, keep lifting your tip. So you're trying to like angle your triangle way towards the sky. The tip of your triangle lifts, 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 At the same time, your right heel lifts as well, and then you keep looking forward. And then the last piece, of course, is freedom from your block buddy. Again, the tendency is just to round like this the more our hips lift, but I want you to look forward, look out. And you'll feel that really dense spot of your back. This is by no means really easy work because it's not where we want to go. Rounding the spine is much easier. Give it one more breath here. Release the blocks, place your hands on the floor, step it back, downward facing dog. Give it a breath in and out. Nice. Okay, one last thing here. Let's try it on with a twist. I'm just going to flip this way so you could see what's happening with the block buddy, what I'm asking you to do. So from here, step your right foot forward, drop the left knee down, uncurl the toes, and then bring your hands up onto the right thigh. Okay, then from here, take your left arm up, take your left elbow and hook it over the right knee, and start your way into the twist. So what you can probably see here is this part of my back doesn't really want to come with me, and it's kind of pushing out to the left side this way, okay? So twist in whatever way that you usually twist. Reorient your pelvis, right hip to the right, left hip to the left. And then just this tiny little movement, find your block buddy freedom. So the way you do that is move your sternum and your belly towards your right thumb and away from that block any amount. And you'll see some of that density out of the left ribs move with you into the spin just a little bit. Breathe for 3, 2, and 1. Take the hands to the floor and step it back, downward facing dog. And then step your left foot forward. So I'll stay facing this way so you can just see a different angle of it. Bring your hands up onto your thigh. Reach your right arm up towards the ceiling and bend your elbow and hook. So right away, I don't know if you can see it, everything's kind of really stuck here and my chest is really rounded. So I'm going to use this block buddy as a reminder to say, hey, I'm looking for that freedom. Move the sternum towards the thumbs and see if that block buddy can wrap around you. And you'll move that dense part of your right ribs into the spin with you for 3, 2, and 1. Last downward facing dog. This is a nice, potent, quick flow as well. Just a quick 18-minute sequence if you don't have enough time, but you want to just get it really into the upper back, get some space. If you slept funny, if you feel really dense there. Give it one more breath together. And out. Nice. Come down to your knees. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.